Alright, blue period is done. I'm going to take that off the list, and we're going to put it right in here. Right here between Wonder Egg and Demon Slayer. So, we'll do that. And we're going to give that a decent 7. If I can type properly. Good show. Could have been better. Especially animation-wise, but it was good. I enjoyed myself. Alright, so now that finishes off like that first week of shows. But it's already taken me so fucking long to get through that a lot of these shows are already finished as well. So what I'm thinking is I'm just going to keep going down this list. I've reorganized it a little bit so that all the shows that are finished are towards the top, and I'm just going to keep going in number order. Like, I think up to around here is where everything's finished. I know I'm recording this on the day that the Mushoku Tensei finale came out, so we're just going to keep powering through. Also, I had to move 86 to next year's list because there's no fucking way 86 is going to finish this year, unfortunately. That's a shame, but oh well. Anyway, we're going to move on to Aquatope of White Sand. I think this is a Yuri show. It's also a PA Works show. Not normally a big PA Works fan, but let's see how it goes. Well, I made it through about 11 and a half episodes of Aquatope, which is way more than I expected to get through this series. I was not hyped for this at all, which we'll get into late in a sec. There was a lot of stuff that I liked about it, and a lot of stuff that I just found really boring. And that's generally my experience with PA Works. PA Works is a very notable studio solely for the fact that it is just so different from everyone else. It's like, it's the only, I forget where they're based exactly, but they're like one of the few that's not based in Tokyo. And they have a very consistent staff of people that they work with, and generally their shows have a brand. Let's put it that way. They definitely have a brand, and Aquatope is definitely their brand, which is not the stereotypical cute girls do cute things, but it is a very cute girls do cute things shows, but all genders are involved in it, and it's just sort of a very relaxed kind of slice of life style with some mild drama elements to it. That is very much their brand, unless Jun Maeda gets involved, in which case you get shit like Charlotte and The Day I Became a God, which is just insanity. But aside from those shows, PA Works, you generally have a solid idea of what you're getting into before you start. And that's why I wasn't super excited for this one. Like, I generally don't like that kind of PA Works style. I think, honestly, the last PA Works show I finished was Charlotte, which was, what, 2016, 2015? And then before that was Shirobako, which was also 2015. So it's been a very long time since I found a PA Works show that I liked. This one came close. I really liked the more episodic elements of it. Like when we met the guy who lost his brother when he was young, when we were chatting it up with the little kids and stuff, when we had Umiyan's episode. But before I forget about that, for the most part, I really like the character designs for the series just because they're so different from a lot of other anime. They really go out of their way to include a lot of different facial features and body types in PA Works shows, which is something I do appreciate about the studio. Umiyan probably has one of my favorite designs. not super into the main two character designs, just because they're a little bit more standard looking, but I like Kukuru's though. She's fine. But I will give them I will definitely give the show props for a really solid supporting cast. Um Totally lost track of where I was going with. Oh yeah, I really liked the episodic content of the series, and there's always, like, at least for a lot of the episodes, there's this very melancholic edge just looming over everything, because it's about an aquarium that's closing and they're desperately trying to make it not close. But I just got to the part where they've basically, the part where I dropped it was where the aquarium finally had its, like, last day. I don't know if they're going to revive it after this, because I'm just not interested, and that's my biggest problem. Is there's so much of the show that I just don't care about. Like, it's just the actual, like, writing, the dialogue, the scenarios, they're just not interesting. It's boring. Like, the resolutions are always really good, and I posted this on Twitter. I was like, am I willing to suffer through 18 minutes of a... And I'm just saying it like this because it's like a meme. Like, if you've seen it on Twitter, you know what I'm talking about. Am I willing to suffer through 18 minutes of a 5 out of 10 setup for a 9 out of 10 payoff that lasts for 2 minutes? And at the beginning, I was like, yeah, I kind of am. Like, it's not that bad. But slowly those 9 out of 10s started to dip to 8 out of 10s and 7 out of 10s, and just, they sort of just went by the wayside. And so now I don't really have a whole lot to look forward to with this show. Yeah, I'm just kind of bored by it, which is a lot, again, which is generally my feelings with PA Works shows. Like, were they the ones who did that Irodoku Colors thing or whatever? Y'all know what I'm talking about, probably. I think they did that one, and that one was real boring. And Sakura Quest was, I know there's a small handful of people who like that, but I found that one incredibly boring. And Sakura Quest is very much in the same vein as Aquatope in terms of premise. It's very like a... PA Works has this kind of... Well, at least between those two shows, there's this sort of like community revival aspect of it. Canepa has a cool video on PA Works and why they sort of gear themselves towards that kind of premise. I think the premise is fine. It's just, I just don't find the writing very interesting. So, yeah. Animation overall was pretty solid, but there wasn't anything super stand out about it. It just looks really clean and polished, which again is another PA Works trademark. But there's very... Aside from, like, the illusion sequences in the aquarium, there's really not a lot of moments of, like, standout animation or storyboarding or set design or anything. But again, PA Works does definitely look different from a lot of other anime. You will definitely be able to tell a PA Works show when you see it. And I commend them for that, but it's just... I just don't find it very interesting to look at. It's technically impressive, like in the detail aspects, but it's just not interesting. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Aquatope. Really wish it was more interesting than it was, but I'm just not invested in this at all. So let's move on. All right. We're going to take Aquatope off the list. And we're also just going to completely scrap everything that I said at the start of this video, because it's been well over a week since then. Not sure why I didn't factor the Christmas week into account. But it is now December 26th, and most, but not all, of the shows are finished. I believe, yeah, everything from Kyokai Senki down is not finished yet. And I've also reorganized some of the stuff that's not finishing until later, like 86 got delayed. Pre-Magi is continuing into next year. And only one episode of Fate Grand Carnival is subbed, so can't watch that yet. So we're just going to head over to the randomizer with what we have. What do we got? We got 1 through 23, it looks like. So let's pull up a randomizer and see what we get. 19. What is 19? Visual Prison. I have no idea what this is. Let's give it a whirl. Alright, that was definitely a thing. I'm gonna guess that this was an Otome game adaptation based solely on the amount of pretty boys. Although the main character is also a boy. I mean, that doesn't exclude it from being an Otome game, but... Okay, so I made it about 6.5 minutes into this episode. I should have dropped it a minute in when they did a fake out, not a fake out OP, but they did a sequence where I was like, wait, is this the OP? No, there's no credits going by, so it's not the OP. It was just them, like, you know how like old key adaptations they would have like little character cards in the OP with like their names just like to introduce the characters. They did that for like 10 characters or something. Didn't remember any of the names except like Jack Moulton because that was like the normal one out of the bunch. So I thought it was the OP for a solid 20 seconds before I realized there were no credits going. So then that happened. Should have dropped it again when there was a second false start OP, but it turned out it was just a music video. A really weird, not even a music video. It's like a music video playing in this kid's mind, but the cinematography makes no fucking sense. Because it's like... It's shot in 4:3, you know, where you got like the bars on each side of the screen, so it's like in standard def, so it's like it looked like a VCR recording, even had like the little static bar going at the bottom, so I'm like, okay, so this is like a music video from the past that this kid is thinking about, like maybe this kid's into like older music, because he's got his headphones on and he's listening to this song, and I'm like, now hold on, the production value and the tone of the song sounds pretty modern, so why does it sound like this? And then eventually like they just get rid of the black bars and go back to 16:9, and then eventually it's revealed that he went to a concert of these people, and so it's like, or at least I think that's what it was saying. And so I'm like, okay, so it's just a normal band, but why? So why did you have the 4:3 aspect ratio? Why did you color it so that it looked like it was cel shaded? Why did you make the effort to make this look like it was an older band? What? And then they had like a pop-up concert in the middle of the street, and then weird supernatural vampire shit started happening, and I was tempted to keep going just because I was so fascinated by how fucking weird and bad it was, but I'm like, no, I don't have time for that. I don't. It's... Holy shit. This is like that fucking... the one show from last season where I just bust out laughing because of the fucking bus crash, where I'm just staring on in awe at how fucking bad it is. But, wow. I'm not going to say don't watch Visual Prison. Watch it for a laugh. Watch it to see what not to do when you're making anything in the visual medium. Let's move on. Alright, let's fucking get rid of that. What's next? What do we have next? Let's bump it down. 11. What is 11? 11 is Pokemon Evolutions. Okay. I've actually been watching this weekly, but I just realized I kept forgetting that some stuff has been putting up subs for them, so I'm actually going to rewatch the whole thing with the Japanese audio this time. Let's jump into it. Alright, I just finished all of Pokemon Evolutions, and wow, I have a lot to say. To be honest, I'm probably going to make a full analysis video just on this because I have so much to say about it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put my general thoughts out here. This was a very hit and miss series. There were a lot of episodes that I loved and a lot of episodes that I could not give a shit about. And it's I guess I'll just go through each one. Well, no, I don't even need to go through each one for this because there's a real simple detail that defines what makes a good Evolutions episode and a bad Evolutions episode, and it's characterization. It's like the simplest thing on the planet from a narrative standpoint, like in terms of what makes something engaging. Like the ones that just flat out retell some stories from the original games, like the Unova episode, which is episode 4, and the Sinnoh episode, which is episode 5. The Evolutions, it goes like backwards in generations, so Gen 8 is the first episode and Gen 1 is the last episode. But like the Unova episode and the Sinnoh episode are probably the worst ones. And the fuck, what was the I'm blanking. What was the name of the Gen 6 region? Whatever Gen 6 was. I can't believe I'm forgetting this. This is the part where you find out that I guess I should have just admit this now. I haven't finished a Pokemon game since Black 2. I've just been so overwhelmed with other stuff that I just can't find time for it. But yeah, so my knowledge of anything past Gen 5 is based solely on the anime. So but that's a thing. But anyway, the Gen 6 one, it was just kind of eh. I felt nothing about it, but the Unova one and the Sinnoh one were probably the worst ones. The Sinnoh one was awful. Like, it was just so basic and uninteresting, and it crammed way too many ideas into one episode. It tried to fit all of the rivals' story into this single episode that was only like 8 minutes long. Not even that, I don't think. And it just did not work. And because I just didn't care about what was happening. I'd already seen this stuff in the games, and I had seen a different version of it in the anime. So what makes this version stand out? But, So, and then on the other hand, you have stuff like the 6th episode, which is the Hoenn episode, where it's like this beautiful retelling of Zinnia retelling the story of her dragon clan and how the battle between Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre and Mega Rayquaza. By the way, seeing the romanized spelling of the Japanese pronunciation of Rayquaza, which apparently is Rayquaza, seeing that written out was like a thing that I did not expect to see. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I've gone so long without seeing this written out. Interesting. By the way, I watched some stuff's subs of these episodes. I watched it with the Japanese voice acting. The English voice acting is on YouTube. It's fine, but it's not great. I much prefer the Japanese audio for it. But the Hoenn episode was just fucking phenomenal. It deepened Zinnia's character so much, both through like very brief flashbacks, and also just how she acts and her voice acting and how into it she really is, how dedicated to this quest she's on. And it was also one of the most phenomenal looking episodes too. Like, aside from narrative, the visual aesthetic of each episode definitely runs the gambit. It's all over the place. Like, again, the Sinnoh episode is easily the worst looking one. Um, the the Gen 6 one isn't super good looking either. I can't believe I can't remember the name of that region. You're gonna yell at me in the comments, I'm sure, but that's fine. Um, and especially like with some of the character designs, I feel like they were a little too detailed at times, which is why I think the last episode, the Kanto episode, was so fun and so exciting. Is just they backed off on the details a lot for that last episode, and it made for a much more fluid and more dynamic animation. God, that last episode was so fucking fun. It was just this mad dash from Mewtwo at the end of the game between like three different people, and it was so fun, and was all characterization and all battles. Like it was like Gen 1 has the least story of all the games, so they really took advantage of that to just be like, let's just characterize these player characters. Let's give them personalities and stuff. So that was a treat. The second to last episode, which was the Johto episode, like they retell the story of Ho and Lugia with the bell tower and the brass tower via the Kabuki show that they put on in Ekritique City. That was really cool. That one kind of deviates from like my general thesis on it, just because it's just a wild card of the bunch. It just goes full artistic presentation, and it's a stage play, and it does some really cool stuff with Pokemon in that episode. But yeah, I haven't talked about the first two episodes much, the Galar and Alola episodes. The Galar one was pretty decent. It's like interspersed, like half of it is, who's the champion? Leon, I think his name. Him battling Eternatus before the player character steps in and finishes it, and then it's intercut with Leon in like a locker room feeling dejected before your battle with him in like the champion battle or whatever. And again, it adds something to this character. It adds depth to this person that we're seeing on screen. It's not just someone reciting the plot at you, which is kind of what the Alola version is. I didn't hate the Alola episode as much as the other ones, just because Lilia is just so strong of a character she might be the best written character in all the Pokemon games. So just taking her from the games and putting it into an anime episode worked because it's just so strong, but everything else about it was just not as interesting. It had some solid animation, but it definitely could have done more in certain areas. But yeah, and then the Gen 6 one, it just was kind of there. It had the Lysander story. I think that's his name. Again, I haven't finished these games yet. And it just kind of came and went. I felt nothing. Yeah, that's the difference between the good episodes in this and the bad episodes, is which ones went the extra mile to portray better characters, which one went the extra mile to just deepen an already solid story. Like, all of the stories that these are based on are good stories. It's just a matter of how they're being told and what they decided to add for the anime version. Like, I might as well just go back and play the games if you're just going to retell the story. Like with the Unova episode, it's just Getsy reciting everything about N's rise to power. And it's just like, okay, I saw this already in the games. Black and White had one of the best stories from any Pokemon game, so I already know it's good. Why are you just taking it, being lax about it, and just taking it for granted? Yeah. One last thing to add is, it's kind of ironic that the Sinnoh one is the worst one. Like, I've seen other people say this too. Like, not a lot of people liked the Sinnoh episode for this.
which is ironic because its premiere kind of came out with the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl release, the remakes of the Sinnoh games. So kind of ironic that it was basically a fanfare piece and it was just bad. But yeah, that's Pokemon Evolutions. Let's go back to the list.
Alright. Pokemon Evolutions is done. And we're gonna put it right here. Very scattershot in its quality, so we're just gonna say that it's fine. It's a decent 6. Is good. Is okay. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing. To be honest, I'm probably gonna make an analysis video in the right after I roll the next thing, so it might be a bit before we get to that.
Okay, I was supposed to do another anime after Evolutions, but it is currently the morning of January 1st, 2022, and I decided to just do a wild card and throw in an anime that I found out about a half hour ago because it premiered yesterday. And so sneaking it in right in the new year, and that is Sorairo Utility. I think I pronounced that right. Sorairo? Who cares? Yeah, I literally just found out about this because I saw someone on my Twitter feed watching it. It's a 15-minute OVA about cute girls playing golf. Or as I mistyped in my tweet about it, girl cutes. This one was just fine. I wasn't expecting a whole lot from a 15-minute OVA with no pre-existing TV anime, as far as I know. I was a little disappointed. Like, this was the animation was a little lacking in a lot of areas. It was definitely like you could definitely see the edges of it. It could have used some fine tuning in a lot of places, but overall it was a fine time. There was a lot of pretty decent humor in it, like some good wordplay, some good banter amongst the characters, even some physical comedy. I thought it was pretty fun. I don't feel like I wasted my time. Let's put it that way. It was 15 minutes and I don't feel like I wasted my time. I don't know a whole lot about golf. I don't remember if I said this. No, wait. Yeah, I did. It's the morning of the new year. I'm loopy already. Drank a lot of sake last night. But, yeah, I don't know a whole lot about golf myself, but I've seen my dad play golf a few times. So there were a lot of elements in it where it was like, yeah, that's pretty spot on to what it looks like. But in particular, the physics of the ball didn't look quite right. I think it's because they were using a CG ball for most of the shots, which isn't impossible to work with. Like Haikyuu makes it look pretty good, but something about this one, it just looked a little fake. It looked a little not real with how the physics of the ball worked, the speed, the trajectory, etc. The designs of the course were pretty nice. It looked like a golf course. I probably should have noticed something was up about this main character though when it opened with she's like, I'm gonna get par on this course finally, and I was like, oh honey, no you're not. Not as young as you are. These are not professional golfers. It doesn't look like. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. It doesn't specify. It looks like they're more casual players. And it's got that sort of general vibe of just a casual golf game. Yeah, and I think that was one of its strengths is it doesn't really when the main character like kind of tries to take herself a little too seriously, the other two are there to jump in and be like, "Hey, relax. You're just playing golf. Just chill out. Just relax. Just have fun with it. Be loosey-goosey and all that shit." So I did like that general vibe to it. Anything else? There was one really good shot near the end, um, where she finally hits that line drive down the middle of the fairway. Uh, had it made I wouldn't say it made up for the lack of good animation up to that point, but it was a nice payoff. Uh, it also didn't have the best opening line, in my opinion. It has that like sort of like, you know how when they have like an artsy quote about sports at the beginning of a sports series that feels like super generic, like you've heard it in 1,000 other sports series. It's got that kind of opening line. So what immediately I'm like, okay, I've seen this before. But fortunately it was not too pretentious about being a golf anime. So that made me happy that I could. This was just a nice, solid, relaxing New Year's Day watch. And happy I watched it. So let's go to the list and figure out where it goes.
Alright, we're gonna move this into the list and we're gonna put it right here. Didn't have to move too far to get it on the list. It's a light 6. So, fun little watch to start the new year. Alright, back to the video proper. Let's go. But we'll take a look. So let's see, we got 21 left. Let's see what's next. 9. Tsuki to Laika to Nosferatu. This is the Vampire Cosmonaut one. I am very excited to watch this. So let's go!
Alright, I just watched all of Irina, Vampire Cosmonaut, and that was pretty damn good. I am excited that I am relieved that my hype for this show was justified, because I saw some people posting this all throughout last season, and it was just looked so fun and cool, and it really was. This is another one of those shows where it has a lot of stuff, surprising amount of stuff in it. Firstly, though, this is like the most anime premise I have ever seen. Well, not the most anime, but this is the premise where I look at it and go, okay, if you don't think anime's fucking cool, then I can't do anything for you. It's about the Russians in the Cold War launching vampires into space. Who comes up with that? I fucking love it. It's awesome. And it leads to a surprising amount of interesting ideas. But in general, the show is very well paced. It's got some great comedic... Well, I will say the one thing about it, it does have some good comedic moments, but I will say one of two major gripes I have with it is it's mostly in the first half, but there's a lot of like dumb anime comedy tropes, like specifically like the groping one. It's kind of weird, like not in like the pervert dude kind of way, but in like the best friend groping kind of way. It's weirdly executed too. It's just one of the, again, overall I like this show, but it's just one of those things where it's like I'm having a good vibe with a scene, everything's going really good, and then they throw in some dumb anime moment and I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And if it was better executed, I might have liked it, but not so much. But overall, I really enjoyed the vibe of this show. There's something very hopeful and optimistic about it. It just... I mean, it's about going to space. It's so everyone wants space travel to happen eventually, I would hope, or at least I would hope, just to push the boundaries of science and human achievement. It's just such a cool idea, and it really captures that feeling of wanting to push forward with human progress. But it also is basically set in the Soviet Union, so it's got that backdrop to it, and it doesn't shy away from that at all. Like, it talks about purges, it talks about the corrupt government officials, it talks about all that government secrecy and shit. and they don't. I'm not gonna say they don't critique it, but it's not like a heavy-handed critique of it. It's very much more along the lines of just like, this is the setting, this is what the characters have to deal with. And it's really not until like the very end that it like comes out and tries to denounce that fully. Like, it's very much just kind of like a, this is the shit we have to live with kind of situation. Like, and I think that's a very interesting way to go about it. This is not a fight the system kind of show. This is a I'm just gonna prove everyone wrong kind of show. Because I mean, it's about a vampire going to space, and it's a I guess vampires in this world are sort of like a minority class. I guess you could describe them as racial discrimination, etc., etc. And it does some pretty interesting things with that. Like, it has a really, I think that has, in my opinion, has a really positive take on basically white saviorism. Like, it shows, or more so privilege, it has a interesting take on what you should do with the privilege you have in order to lift up those around you. Instead of just basking in the glory of you raising someone up, you should be just solely highlighting the achievements of those of minority groups. And it's a really interesting, not interesting, just a really good take to have on it. Lev, our main character, Russian guy, is just this really nice dude. Has a couple flaws here and there, gets a little overly zealous about stuff, gets him in a lot of trouble, but in general, I really liked him. I never thought he was too nice or too perfect. So I think that was the key with this particular kind of character, especially with, and it's based off a light novel. That kind of thing tends to happen sometimes. But really liked him. Irina as well, our vampire cosmonaut of the title. Really fun as well. Really interesting, just kind of takes on her view of humanity, who's basically slaughtered her people over the years, and just basically trying to get back at them by beating them to the moon. I guess I should have explain that a little bit too. Basically the premise is Russia. It's not Russia, but it's Russia. But they're launching a vampire into space first just to make sure it's safe for humans. And so it's sort of like the mindset of, well, if the vampire gets fucked up, who cares? And Irina's basically just there to be like, oh yeah, I'm coming back alive, motherfucker. Get out of my way. What I was not expecting was that this show would be divided into two halves, basically. Because, like, she's in space and comes back home by episode 7. So, and then, like, the second half is when they actually launch a human into space. And it turns out to be Lev. And we get that sort of conflict there of, like, he gets all the glory for it, whereas she's in the shadows and has to deal with it. Some really complex emotions going on with her there. Along with the basically budding romance between the two of them, which I found really sweet and cute and fun all around. Really liked that. But the ending came very close to stretching the suspension of my disbelief, because it basically like overturns that whole premise, and Lev just comes out and says, hey, she did this first. You should praise her just as much as you praise me, which is kind of like that privilege moment I was talking about before. And it kind of turns into like this weird chase sequence almost, or just like where Irina has to escape from the facility that she was being held at. And that came very close to breaking my suspension of disbelief, because it's like, yeah, she's at a top secret facility, kind of easy to break out of. But it is also Soviet Union when it's not doing super hot. Um, and also they spin it in a way where it's like, yeah, we planned this, we kind of planned for this to happen, in order to move our government in a direction that we want to move it in. So I think it's really, that's another really cool thing, is they basically use progressivism as a tool to push their own government agendas. So, which may or may not be a thing that's happening right now. Who knows? Who could say? But I found that really interesting. That basically, like, the government basically stays a neutral, evil entity in this. They're just out for whatever pushes their agenda forward the best, and so the way they basically planned on Lev trying to oust their secrets was really interesting. Yeah, there's a surprising amount of decent political talk in this. Again, that's what I like so much about the setting, is it's very much couched in the, hey, this is kind of fucked up, but they just have to live with it kind of stuff. But it still has that, like, hopeful message at the end that things maybe will get better. Hopefully. Hopefully. So yeah, that was, I just really like I really love the premise of this show, and I just really like all the ideas that it explores. All the sort of downtime slice of life moments are really fun and cute, and I really like the attention to detail on the technology. Obviously, since it's early spaceflight, you want to get that part right for all the nerds out there. And also just like general other technology as well, like cameras from the time look like they did back then. Just really interesting stuff. But speaking of the visuals, that was my other notable complaint about this one, is kind of looks like ass sometimes, which is a damn shame, because if this show had really good animation, I feel like this could have been a favorite for me, like, full stop. But there are so many shots that are either overly ambitious and just come off looking kind of awkward, or it's very clear that they just had to, like, they were on a tight schedule with this one, or just didn't have enough staff to make it as good looking as it could be. Like, I think the character designs definitely could have used a little fine-tuning, although I will say the eyes are probably some of my favorite eyes from anime. They just look really cool and striking and just very interesting overall. And it has some, like, I will say that it makes up for its animation shortcomings with general cinematic competency. It's got some great shot composition, some great pacing and editing, really good use of color for what it has to work with. Just generally, it's literally just the animation that's holding this show back. God, I wish this looked better, but I mean, it's based on I think 5 or 7 volume light novel series, I think. And I think it crammed it all into one series, because it basically ends on a finale. That was another thing I was really happy to find about is that this is a concluded series. Because, I mean, you're anime fans, you know what it's like to just end on, will this get a second season or not? But just to have a tight 12 episodes, and this was a tight 12 episodes. It was paced really well. There was no point where I really felt like it was dragging or anything. God, yeah, this was just a damn good show. If all I have to say is like, normally I don't like to say that the premise is important to a show because it's all about the execution, first off. And aside from the animation, the execution for this show was really solid. It's quick paced, it's funny, it's cute, it's exciting, it's got some great. It's directed well, written well, and apparently the actual author of the light novels did the series composition for the anime, so that was cool. I forgot where I was going with this thought. But yeah, but this is one of the few instances where the premise really stuck out at me is this is fucking cool. If I say, okay, this anime is set in the Cold War during the space race and Russia is sending vampires into space, if that premise doesn't vibe with you, I don't know what else to tell you, my man. It's just that's just so fucking cool. And it is a solidly executed premise, so it has that going for it. Yeah, this was. I don't know what the rest of the season is going to look like, but I think this has the potential to be one of my favorites from this season. I think the only other thing noteworthy from last season was season 2 of Mushoku Tensei. I can't remember anything else. But I'm sure I'll get to it as the list goes on. So speaking of that, let's go back to the list.
Alright, we're gonna take Irina and move it right here, right above Slime Diaries. This one came very close to being an 8, but I think a strong 7 is good for this one. I just wish it had better animation because there were so many moments that looked like poop. But yeah, good show.